Reynolds, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Charlie. This is actually a nice surprise. I heard you were traveling. I didn't know if we were going to be meeting today.
No, I leave immediately after this show, head off to Ireland. But being up at 5 a.m. is fine. So it's the best part of the day for me. And on top of that, I woke up to some fascinating global news this morning.
Really?
That Trump has been indicted about.
I saw that.
And for me, that's very, very exciting. Because that's the perfect cover story for this weekend, because I knew something big was happening this weekend, and I knew that there would be something to cover it to make sure that people were distracted and their eye was taken off what's actually happening, which was the changing of the banking system this weekend. And the fact that the case has got more holes in it than a sieve. I've done a fair amount of research about it, just to have a look at it. And of course, it doesn't take too long to work out that he's never actually met Stormy Daniels. It was Michael Cohen that met Stormy Daniels. It was Michael Cohen that paid Stormy Daniels. Well, he didn't pay Stormy Daniels direct. He paid a woman called Stephanie Clifford. And the whole thing was fabricated by Michael Cohen and a team of people. And it was done on purpose to discredit Trump back in the day. The easiest woman in the world, and you know this very well, Victoria, the easiest woman in the world to use for something like this is a sex worker, because they're used to getting paid for doing certain things. So it's in their nature. Whether it's sleeping with you or making up a story, they'll do whatever it takes to get paid. That's what their job is. So there's no surprise. I woke up this morning and I saw this. I thought, brilliant. This is the weekend that I've been looking forward to. And it also sets a precedent. It sets a precedent that, you've got people like Obama and the Bushes and the Clintons who've started so many wars and killed so many people. And they all, Obama certainly won the Nobel Peace Prize award for that. None of those were indicted. So the fact that and this is where they don't realize how stupid they are, because what they've done is they've set a precedent that if you can arrest Trump or indict Trump, then you're setting the precedent the rest can be arrested. It's beautifully done. It's poetry in motion, and especially this weekend. So that's made my morning this morning.
Well, what's interesting is that I have never really followed Q much. I'm actually not a follower.
Okay. But
I do remember a post, several years ago about the first indictment would shock the world kind of thing.
Yep.
And that it's actually exciting to see that's what's happening.
Yep.
And for me, it's evidence that we're starting to see real movement.
Yep.
And it's also one of the things that was being shown a few years ago was that Trump would need to be removed from the picture in order for some of this other stuff to occur, so it doesn't look like he's the one that's making it happen. So if he's out of the picture, if he's sitting in jail somewhere or whatever it is that they do with him, and then this other stuff starts to be exposed, they can't blame him for it because he's not anywhere where he can be in charge of it. So it actually does feel like it's a good thing. Oh, and I did hear from a friend that there is something happening this weekend, and she told me to go get cash out of the bank.
Yep. Now's the time to have cash out of the bank, because the system today is the 31st of March, 2023, and the old system is coming to an end today. The new system's in play. The new system is in play. ISO 20022 was put in play a week or so ago, became effective. So there are things that are happening, and there are many, 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 many banks that have notices on their doors saying that they are closed for the weekend, as from today, Friday, through Monday. And people go, it's Easter. Well, I think Easter's next weekend, but never mind.
It's not Easter weekend. Yeah, it's not Easter.
Correct. But it is April Fool's Day tomorrow. So there's a lot of things that are happening.
So I'm at this really wonderful event that I'm speaking at this weekend, and they have some live music and a live band going. So just
brilliant.
Oh yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements lately.
Amazing. And this is what it needs. I'm actually coming into the States again in April to Bowie in Texas.
Okay.
And looking forward to that with PPM, with Chaz Carter and his team. And it's very, very important that we get the message out and keep people's spirits up during for people that are waking up right now. It's pretty scary. I don't know what's going on.
Well, and it's going to get scarier because that we're going to start see the systems collapsing, which is scary for people who don't know what it is. But it is, and I think I told you that one of the visuals I was given a few years ago was a picture of a building collapsing. It's a controlled implosion.
Yep.
Those of us in the spiritual community have been talking for years about how all the systems need to collapse.
Yep.
And so it's actually exciting to see it starting to happen for people who are just now starting to wake up or just now starting to see what's happening in the world. It's going to be very scary for them. And so it's really important for those of us that are awake and aware and have learned how to find peace within ourselves to be that grounding and to be that soft place to land and to be that holding the peace for others when we're starting to go through the chaos.
It is a controlled implosion. And that's important to point out to those people who are currently scared.
Yeah.
This is completely controlled by God and God's army.
Yeah.
And we're watching the fall of the cabal. And just while I mention that, this is the first time I've mentioned this publicly. I have some sad news that Janet Ozenbard and Cynthia Kutza, who put together Fall of the Cabal, have split up, the two of them, and gone their own ways. And they've put so much effort into helping people understand what's going on. I spoke to them last night because I heard from my audience that they had gone their own way, and it is very sad. And this shows the pressure of what good people are going through right now. It's not easy, and that is why God picked you and me, because we have the foundations of having been through some pretty horrific things in our lives. And God knows that we have the inner strength to survive this. There's a lot of people that have been called and have done a brilliant job, and that is unsurpassed, especially with Janet and Cynthia. They've done amazing work. But sadly, the pressure of everything became too much, and I would pray to God that he looks after both of them, and whether they work separately or whether they work together in the future, nobody knows. But I would say to everyone in your audience and my audience to pray for these two people who've put so much into this journey to bring clarity for people. And Janet's way of delivering the message on video has made it very simple for a lot of people to listen to. The Fall of the Cabal 1 right the way through to the mid-20s now. It's incredible. So my heart goes out to both of them. It's important that the audience know that. But moving forward, we need to prepare people for a very, very bumpy time. As I've said a few times, we're in an aeroplane where all 4 engines have failed. Fortunately, we have a captain on board that's trying to land this plane, but it will be bumpy and there will be a crash. There will be a financial crash from a banking point of view. There will be a stock exchange crash from a point of view of the stock markets, and there will be shortages of food. There will be many things. There will be an internet blackout because we're changing over from the old internet to Starlink, and these things take time. And I've tried to prepare my audience as best I can to say, try and have enough food and provisions and money to last you and your family for 30 days. It may only be 7 or 10 days, who knows, but it will take time. But just if you've prepared yourself, we've actually prepared ourselves for a couple of months because I have a wife that thinks, it's better safe than sorry. We took all of our money out of the banking system, the legacy or the old banking system 3 years ago. But I'd rather be 3 years early than 1 day late. Because suddenly when the banking system goes down, there will be no warning. The only warning that you will get is, don't worry, the banks are safe. That's the loudest warning you'll get, because they will tell you it's safe so that they can get their money out. They don't care about you.
So where are you having people put their money? I know we talked about that a little bit last time, and there was an app that you told me about. But so for me, I'm actually thinking about selling my house because I have a house in California, and I'm just feeling like it's not like California is going to fall into the ocean, but the insight that I started getting a bit ago is that California is going off the deep end.
It is going off the deep end for sure, for sure.
And I don't know if, Mother Earth tends to, she might cause a ruckus in Hollywood and downtown Los Angeles. Let's put it that way. So, but my concern is then where do I put the money?
Well, I'm
going to be living off until the RV occurs.
Yeah, I took the bulk of my money and I put it into Glint, which is the app that I told you about, and then once it's in there, you've got it in there in dollars, euros, or pounds, and I move it instantaneously into physical gold. And the gold is allocated. It's in Brinks. It's in Switzerland. It's allocated to you. So it's not in the banking system. It has to go through the banking system to buy it. But the moment you've got it into the app using their banking system in the United Kingdom, it's Lloyd's Bank. I don't know which one it is in America, but it'll be one of the American banks. The moment it's in your account in whatever currency, then move it into physical gold and then attach your debit card to your gold so that you can actually spend if you so need. The reality is that a lot of these banking systems will collapse. They will. We don't know which ones will and we don't know which ones won't. So the bulk of my money is there. But then I also have physical gold and physical silver. So they're small denominations, but the reality is if the banking system collapses the way I see it's going to collapse, cash, even if you've got cash, will only last for a period of time because people won't want to take it because they can't put it in the bank. So people will need to have something like gold or silver for a period of time, just a small amount. And I've always said enough to last you for a month. That's what I have said. Now, my wife and I could comfortably live on $500, 500 euros for a month, comfortably, if we had to. We have provisions at the house, like big bags of rice, and we got stuff in the freezer, etc. We've got plenty of water. I've actually bought a generator 2.5 years, so that we've got power, and I have enough fuel for the generator. So I didn't do that in one day. With the generator, it took me 6 months to build it all up, to get the generator, to get it connected to the house, to get the fuel, to get everything ready, doing it bit by bit by bit. So people think, well, I can't afford that. I did it stage by stage. And my father always told me there's no such word as can't. That was just the way he was. In the 60s, you just got on and did things. Nowadays, nobody can do anything. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. Of course, they came from a generation that went through the Second World War, where they had to learn to survive. They had vouchers for food, rations for food, and most nights they had to sleep under the bed. Oh, I couldn't sleep under the bed. It's a hard floor. It's a marble. They had to, but we've been so wrapped up in cotton wool for so many years. This wake-up call is going to be a shock to some people. People like you and I have been through it. This is why we're on this journey, because we know what we're talking about. We've been through it. We've been through difficult times, and we survived.
Okay, I had myself muted because it's so loud out.
No worries.
Yeah, and human beings are far more resilient than they think they are. It was interesting when you were saying the word can't, because I'm remembering something that someone told me years ago. The word can't either means you don't know how or you don't want to.
Correct.
And so it's a matter of when we say we can't, really thinking about, is it that I don't know how? And if I don't know how, I can learn how.
Yeah.
Or is it I don't want to and I don't want to learn how? So I think it's really, really important for people when they think about how they can't do something to really stop and be conscious of what that means and then make a conscious choice. I can learn how, or is it this because I just don't really want to? But when you become conscious of your choices, then you can make better choices and then be proactive in your own life. And Charlie, I have been through so much in my lifetime, leaving home when I was just a teenager, and you figure things out.
Yeah.
I've been homeless a couple of times. Figure things out. And so that's kind of where we are now. It's requiring us to be able to step into our ingeniousness. We're actually entering the age of ingenious, which I think is brilliant. That's the next age for humanity once we get out of this mess we're in. I actually talk about it in this book. what the next age is. And that we all have genius inside of us.
Yeah.
We just need to stop assuming someone else has all the answers and stop looking to someone else to be the leader, and really become conscious of what it is we want to create in our own lives, and then learn how. Everything we want to know about everything is actually available to us. It's like I tell my kids when they say, Mom, I don't know how to do blah, 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 blah. I just say, YouTube. Because everything you want to know about pretty much anything you can find out on YouTube. And so we're creating on the other side of this transition process that we're in. There's a magnificent world that's waiting for us. And I think the thing too, what the guidance I've been getting is that 2023 is the beginning of the mass awakening. So we had the Great Awakening that started around 2017, really started snowballing in 2020. That's the lockdown actually caused a ton of people to wake up, because they went inside and didn't have anything else to do except for research. And that this year, 2023, is the beginning of the mass awakening. So every awakening experience we've had on our planet has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is like the tsunami of awakening that's starting this year. And it's going to continue through 2024. I am seeing things really starting to settle down in 2025. So I'm doing something completely different. I got the guidance about 2 months ago to use all my food. I was like, I stockpiled food. My refrigerator, my freezer is to you almost can't close my deep freezer. And I have a generator hooked up to my freezer. I'm all prepared for needing at least 3 months supply of food, because it's not just for me, it's for my family and for my neighbors. And I started getting the guidance to use everything, which is the opposite of what everybody else is doing. But it's because what I'm being shown for myself is that I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling, and I can't drag 3 months worth of food with me. So my particular purpose is a little bit different than most people, where I'm going to be picking up and not living anywhere and not staying anywhere and relying on the resources around me wherever it is I land. So I think it's really, in my particular case, it's a little bit different, where I'm actually thinking about selling my house. And then I tune in to ask where I'm going to be this year. And the response was everywhere and nowhere. And then I was told I'm going to be a spiritual gypsy for the next year. So that's just my circumstances, a little bit different. But I think for most people, yes, be smart and have a couple of months worth of food and water. You know, we're seeing right now what's happening with the water, and a lot of water is being poisoned, at least here in the United States. Yeah. It's important to have a good backup supply of water. And then when we get through this, it's going to be amazing. It's just that we need to stop focusing on how difficult things are and try to focus on where we're going from here.
What you just said literally was my opening lines at one of the Clay Clark Reawakening tours, that God made us in his own image, and God is the creator. So by default, we are creators, and we just need to become creative. We have everything, and you touched on it there. We have everything within. We immediately go to YouTube for the answers. We go to Alexa. We go to Siri. God gave us all of the answers within. The trouble is we've become disconnected. And you and I know what it's like to be disconnected, because we both went through a period of our life where we were disconnected. But we have both, a bit like the prodigal son and if there was a prodigal daughter, you would be it. That you've come back and you've reconnected. And God is there with open arms for you and for me. Probably in my case where I didn't deserve it. And I've been welcomed back into God's arms without question, without finger pointing, without guilt, just with the fact that I've repented. I've said I'm sorry and I meant it. And as far as God's concerned, that's dealt with. That's done. He doesn't hold on to it. He doesn't remind you of it 10 years down the line or a year down the line. I'm forgiven so that I can move on and help other people without the burden, if you like, of sin and the burden of having done things that were not right. And this is what's amazing with God. I had a lovely conversation because I learned something new, really, really new, that I had no idea existed 2 weeks ago. And this was about the Jews. I had no idea that they didn't believe that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, the Messiah. I didn't know that. 2 weeks ago. So the first thing I did was phone up Aaron Antis, who's Clay Clark's sidekick, but he's also a biblical scholar. He understands the Bible inside out. He understands faith, religion. And I said, is this true? And he said, yes, it is. He said they were unaware of who Jesus was the first time round. But he said they'll soon find out, and they will. There will be those that fall by the wayside. That's life in every walk of life. But at the second coming of Jesus Christ, the majority of them will wake up to the truth that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and is the Messiah, which I found absolutely fascinating because I had no concept of that.
Oh, yeah. So what happened is that so I know my way around the Bible really well.
Good girl. You can enlighten me.
Yeah. So there was a prophecy, Isaiah prophesied that a Messiah would be coming and he would be born to a woman named Mary.
Yep.
So everybody had at least one daughter named Mary. But somebody said, it was just a common name. It wasn't just a common name. It was prophesied that he would be born to a woman named Mary. And so every family had at least one Mary, if not all their daughters named Mary. Because this daughter might be the one, this daughter might be the one. And so it was prophesied. But the reason a lot of the people didn't recognize him is because they thought the Messiah was going to be someone who came and with a sword and got rid of the Romans. So they didn't know that the Messiah was someone who was bringing spiritual freedom. Right. And so they were looking for someone who brought physical freedom.
Okay.
And that's why they didn't recognize him.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the reason that they've been tormented for the last 2,000 years is because of that. And no one should be tortured for their beliefs.
No.
I just don't. But that's what they've been tortured for thousands of years. And I think it's time to, lack of a better word, let that shit go. Because everybody's allowed to believe what they choose and to not believe what they choose. And as you were saying, God's love is unconditional.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what we believe. That the love is pure, absolute, unconditional love.
Every faith and religion has got positives and negatives. Every one. There's not one faith in the world that has got everything right. Not one. And this is the way that it works. And as I point out to my wife, who was born a Muslim, if they did, then I'd be allowed to have 5 wives. My wife said, no.
You don't even have
Exactly. Now I can say that to you because you understand me.
Yeah.
Because of what it actually meant to you as a young lady. And that's why I mentioned this, because this had an impact on your life. And
so before Muhammad, men were allowed to have as many wives as they wanted. After Muhammad, men were only allowed to have 4.
4, is it? Okay.
It's still collecting women. So and they're allowed to start very young. And the fundamentalists, I believe, can betroth someone when she's 8 years old. It's really,
yeah.
I won't get into those details, but yeah. And so at the core of every religion are spiritual truths of peace, love, faith, harmony. It's at the core of every religion. The issue is that within each religion, there's also fear-based dogma and rules that were created by men to keep human beings divided and conquered. So if it's really a matter of going into whatever belief system it is and figuring out how to separate the beautiful spiritual teachings that are universal. It doesn't matter which religion it is. The spirituality, the beautiful divine love connection to God is in every religion. And
it is.
And then how do you extract the fear-based dogma that has been intertwined with the beautiful spiritual concepts in every religion. So I am not a religious person. And I also, if that is someone's path, then I also support that, because every single one of us has our own path to God. And I honor whatever another person's path is. I just happen to know what mine is. And
I totally agree.
God is within, not an external being in the sky for me.
No, I totally agree, because, and this is what people don't, they think we're all called to do the same thing, and we're not. Yeah. You've been called for a specific reason. I've been called for a specific reason. I had no idea of my calling until 3 years ago.
I've known mine for about 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know. I was all, I knew there was something, but I didn't know what it was. It became very clear 3 years ago, because everything that I was researching 3 years ago, God was guiding me to the right places, and I felt it. I felt that it became very, very clear. the information that was there to deceive, and it was very, very clear the information that was there to help people. And as we're going through this period right now, there will be a lot of misinformation and deceit.
That's right.
And this is and the answers are not, as I said just now, they're not on Google, they're not on YouTube, they're not with Siri, they're not with Alexa, they're within you. God gave you every single answer. Everything. There's not one answer he didn't give you. And what we now need to do is go within. And I had somebody the other day who asked me the question, well, can you show me the evidence? I said, the evidence is actually within you. He said, well, I can't tell this person that because they're so-and-so, this, and that. I said, well, why don't you try? Why don't you try? Because a lot of these tough men out there are actually big softies inside, and they're actually more connected than they give. And the only reason they've got a tough exterior is to protect what's inside. I know that.
Yeah, I think a lot of men are very soft on the inside. They just have had to put on this big shell because men aren't allowed to feel, right? But I think, and what I started saying a few years ago is that we're in the age of discernment. I started saying that about maybe 2019, might have been 2020. And so you and a whole lot of other people started waking up in 2020. That was the Great Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And the age of discernment actually is where we presently are, which is evidence that humanity is growing up, that we're now collectively mature enough to start to discern what is and isn't true, what is and isn't best. I don't do right wrong because what's right for me might not be right for another person. It's more about knowing what's best. And when we're in our heart and we ask divine what's best, it's always going to be what's best for us and best for all concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So we can actually take the duality of right, wrong out of it. And as long as we're focusing on what's best, the answer will always be what's best for all.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be loving, always.
Yeah.
And because God is love, and everything that comes from God is love. If we will allow that to be with us and to be that guiding direction through us. It's just that a lot of people haven't been taught how to do that, but people have been taught to look to someone else for the answers, to look to the preacher for an answer, turn to the teacher for an answer, turn to the media for an answer, turn to all these external individuals to be the answer and to be the leader, not understanding that every one of us has the ability to lead our own lives. And what we're really being called upon now, really, really, really strongly this year, and I started feeling this about a month ago, that we are now being called to find the leader within ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And we all have it in us.
You and I can actually vouch for the fact that as we do this, the first stages are pretty scary. When you start to trust yourself, trust your intuition, and don't be afraid. I've said this so many times, don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's where you learn. When you start to trust yourself, the devil and Satan will still try and put certain things in your way, in your mind. But you get a feeling that you cannot explain sometimes. You can't explain what that feeling is. It's just that you're guided a certain way, and that's just God's arm around you.
Yeah. It's that guidance that comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one of the things that I talk about, that self-trust is a brand new concept for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We've never been taught how to trust ourselves. But the truth is the divine is always speaking through us.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to turn off all the external voices, like even on my YouTube channel, I tell people I have a disclaimer on every single one of my episodes that says, take what resonates with you. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I don't know the exact verbiage I have it written down, but it was about, if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Because every person has to follow whatever their inner guidance is. And I teach what I teach, and it might not resonate with everybody. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my job to tell people what to think. It's my job to help people open their hearts to new possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And as we enter this age of discernment and this age of self-trust, it's a brand new muscle that most of humanity's never had to use before. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
no one's going to be good at it right up front. It's like going to the gym. Nobody's great at lifting weights the first time. It takes some practice and learning how to trust yourself. And then you'll start to hear that guidance and go, oh, yeah, that's what that feels like. That's what that sounds like. And to trust that, because that is the divine, that is God speaking through each of us. All of us are one with God, not just Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that too is something that's going to be difficult for a lot of people to understand, because they've been taught since, what I call hand-me-down beliefs, that we're separate from God, and none of us are separate from God. We've never been separate from God. We were just told that we were.
Yeah. And it was done in a nice way, that God is up in the heavens rather than God being within us. And I used to think I could go to places and he wouldn't be able to see me. Then I realized he was inside me. And then it just puts a smile on your face to think the sort of lengths that you went to, that I went to try and get away with stuff. But this is all part of the journey of getting to know. And you're absolutely right. None of us know everything straight away. We learn day by day by day. And most of the time we learn from failure.
Well, and none of us know everything anyway.
No, exactly. Exactly.
And as I've explained before, one of the reasons that none of us have all the answers is because we have to work together.
Yeah.
It causes us to work together in cooperation. So all of us are given little bits and pieces of the puzzle, but none of us have all the answers. None of us are fully enlightened. None of us are completely aware. No one is as awake as they think they are, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to discover.
That's an interesting point, that we have to work together. And the cabal, the deep state and everything want us separated.
That's right.
God wants us to work together to get the answers.
So that's why they created all those labels to keep us divided. Man against black against white, gay against straight, old versus young, rich versus poor. They created all these labels to keep us divided and conquered.
Yeah.
And what we're being called for always, there's this call back to unity. And the dark side of contrast, as I call it, knows if they can keep us divided, they can keep us under control. And that they are terrified of what happens when we unify. Mm-hmm. And I've been talking for years about, for me, there is no right versus left. There is no Democrat versus Republican. There's no conservative versus liberal. That whole story is created to keep us from unifying on this beautiful bridge of love and harmony and possibility. And when we unify, we create an entirely new world. And that's what the contrast fears most. And they're doing everything they can to keep us battling each other, so we don't see what they're really up to. And more and more people are waking up and saying, we see how the game is being played, and we're not going to fall for the labels of division anymore. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter what the label is, whatever box people have put themselves in, we all want the same thing. I mean, there are some people on the far extremes that don't, but we all want the same thing. We want love, we want harmony, we want security, we want safety, we want our families to feel safe, we want to live in a place that's warm and dry, and we want to know that we can get up every morning and that we have, loved ones around us. We all want the same thing. The division is actually an illusion that was created to keep us divided, and I don't buy it. I don't fall for it. I don't do labels. I don't pick sides. I am here in what I call the sane purple middle.
Yeah. And they're getting desperate now, even with these attacks that are happening in Nashville, and one thing with trans people attacking and pre-ops and all this. This is all done to try and create division. And the moment you can see it's all so obvious and so clear. But for those people who can't, they just hang on to this division, and they have this. They don't know where it comes from. It's like a hate for this group of people and this is why it's done. They've had years and years and years to drip it in. But now, because of Operation Warp Speed, they're being rushed. So they're making mistakes, and it's looking too obvious, way too obvious now. For those people who are awake, we see straight through it.
Well, and not only that, but one of the visions I was given a couple of years ago, like a visual, is my third eye is very active, and I have always been able to see the future. Yeah. So a lot of what's happening right now, I was shown 10 years ago. What I was shown a couple of years ago is that I think we talked about this, is if you imagine playing a card game, And the dark side of the contrast is laying every card they have out on the table. And I was shown a couple of years ago, it would come to that point where they would play every card they have. And that's what's starting to happen. They're like,
Yep.
let's try this. This worked. Oh, wait, let's try this. This worked once. Let's try this. And so they are playing every card they've got.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that the side of light has an ace card up their sleeve, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just trying everything. They're just putting it all out there. And everything they do shoots themselves in the foot. I think I mentioned that before. The visual I got was they shoot themselves in the foot until they have no leg to stand on. And that's what's starting to happen. And so we're just watching it. We're watching them implode. And it's actually very exciting for those of us that know what it is.
Tell me what your latest book is.
Oh, it's Recreating Earth. Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
There we go. And this, there's 4 parts to it. The first part is a counterpoint to the global agenda. So if you go to, there's the Agenda 2030. So one of the things I explain to people is the dark side tends to use the word agenda, and the side of light uses the word plan. It's a really easy way to be able to kind of separate whether something is on behalf of the light and behalf of the dark. So you have God's plan and you have the Cabal agenda, for example. So you have the 2030 agenda that's on the United Nations website. It lists 17 different systems and what their answers are to create a better world through their 17 systems. So I had this message come in it's been about 2 years now. It takes me a while to write a book. About 2 years ago, I started hearing that I needed to write the Plan of Light response to the 2030 agenda. So it's called the 2030 Plan. And it's those same 17 systems, only there's one more because what I find fascinating is that they didn't include the entertainment industry. They talked about all the other systems, but they didn't include media, because that's their number one tool, which I do include in my book. So this is the first section is a response to the 2030 agenda. It's the 2030 New Earth Plan. And it's called Recreating Earth because people are calling it New Earth, but we're not going to a new planet. We're recreating the one that we're on. We're restoring this one. Those who work on behalf of the dark side of the contrast, they're the ones that are leaving. The rest of us are staying here and bringing this planet back to the beautiful paradise she was once created to be. So we are really restoring Earth and recreating Earth. So the first section is about the 2030 plan as opposed to the 2030 agenda. The second section talks about what each of these systems will look like. So people can start to visualize them. People started asking me, well, what does it look like? What does it look like? How can I help envision it? I'm surprised how many people don't have the ability to envision, because it's something that's just normal for me. So this is a vision of what New Earth looks like. It was actually given to me by Metatron. So Metatron is the scribe of God. He's showing me what the future already is, and we're going to be bringing it into our reality. So it's what New Earth is going to look like. The third section is all about what each of us can do to create it, because one of the questions I get from people all the time is, well, what can I do? How can we help to create it? So one section is dedicated just to what we as individuals can do to actually create these new models. One of the things I share with people is the word systems actually going to be replaced by the word services, because systems were actually created to systemize the human experience. It's like taking human beings and putting them on a conveyor belt. So the entire idea of systems is actually going to be changing, because systems actually do not serve humanity. They serve themselves. And then the last section is dedicated to resources, different places where people can go to look for resources and they can start to get involved. So
amazing.
The book is getting really good reviews, and it's very hopeful, and it's very beautiful, and it's what the Earth is going to look like when we finish moving through this. I have a dream of making it into a movie, because I've discovered that a lot of people, even with words, still can't envision what I can see. And what we're moving into is so incredibly beautiful. It's paradise, peace and prosperity and paradise for all life on Earth. So this is based on the humanitarianism model that I was given. So if we don't energize this, we'll end up defaulting into the totalitarianism model. So we need every person who can to take their eyes off the totalitarianism that is trying to be spread like a virus across the planet. And the real virus is fear. And they're doing everything they can to keep humanity afraid. But we have the capacity, because we are creators.
Mm-hmm.
We can create this new reality by
Mm-hmm.
energizing it and by envisioning it and taking our vision off of what they want us to envision and instead put our vision on what the creator wants us to envision.
We're actually seeing it happening now in real time, where we're seeing people get trapped into the old system of enslavement, and we're seeing people that are liberated, that are outside of that. It's a very interesting transition to watch it happen, and I believe that the final wake up call will be when people go to the bank and can't get their money out. It's very sad that the only thing that will actually wake people up is when they can't get hold of their money, but that's a fact of the amount of brainwashing and indoctrination that's gone on, that money's so important to people that they need it to survive. Well, the truth is there's a lot of people that you and I know that have become completely detached from that world and realize that there's a lot more to life than money. And yes, you need money to pay for bills. Yes, you do at this moment in time. But there's an awful lot more that we can do to detach ourselves from the financial matrix that we've lived under for many, many years. I've been detached from the financial matrix for the best part of 40 years because I haven't borrowed money, because nobody would lend to me, because I don't exist. I'm not on a credit score. I'm not on this. I'm not on that. I'm not on the other. And yes, it's not easy, but I wasn't picked for this journey because I was willing to accept an easy path. I will question, I will challenge everything. And that's what's helped to make me grow spiritually as a man. It's made me a father, it's made me a grandfather, and it's made me a good husband, because I've had to go. It's very interesting as well, Victoria. People look at you and me and go, I've had it the last weekend. I'd love to have your life. I'd love to have your life. And I said, well, you don't know what I've been through to get there. And this is what people overlook. You and I have had to suffer an immense amount to get where we are today. It didn't just land on our laps. It didn't happen overnight. It has taken, in my case, 62 years to get where I am. A lot of soul searching, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Both you and I have both been homeless in our lives. I look back at that with gratitude, because God put me on that path for a reason, to see if I was tough enough for today, to see if I could survive, to see if I was a real man or just talking about being a real man. There are plenty of good talkers out there that I call them gunners. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, but they don't actually do anything. They're gonna do this tomorrow. Are you a gunner or are you a doer? What are you?
I say sometimes, Charlie, that people talk about someday. Someday I'm going to do whatever. There is no such day as someday. It does not exist.
Yeah.
So we need to make a choice. Today, make a choice, make a decision, because someday there's no such day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you with the gunner. I'm gonna do that someday, but it's that somewhere out there in some non-existent future.
Mm-hmm.
And this again goes back to being the leader of our own life and choosing, and it's interesting you talk about how people would like to be like us. No idea. Some years have been great and some years have not. And I'm, as you were talking about being homeless, I'm sitting thinking, oh crap, I'm going to sell my house and be homeless again.
Yeah.
I'm being asked by Spirit to let go of my house and trust and not know where I'm going to stay and not know where I'm going to land and not even know where I'm going to be sleeping a week later. That's not the easiest way to live, but that's what I'm being asked to do. And it's kind of scary.
Let go of possessions.
I'm being asked to let go of everything, let go of attachments. Everything. And literally the only thing I carry with me is my clothing and a camera. But that's what I'm being asked to do, and it's not an easy choice.
Sure.
And I have to follow the guidance I came here to be a traveling teacher, a spiritual gypsy is what I'm being told. And I'm like, okay, that's not easy.
No.
And the choices that I have made the last few years have not been easy. And it's not glamorous.
Yeah.
But I follow God's guidance, and that's what I'm being told to do. And that I came here for a purpose, and I have to follow the work that I came here to do. So
well, it's wonderful to see you, sweetheart. I'm going to let you get off back to your party or back to bed or wherever.
The music playing back there. Yeah.
And I'm heading off to Ireland today.
Yeah, have fun in your travels.
Will do. and I'll send you much love and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, I'll see you again soon. Mwah. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.